we think we're ready to go to work.
High above the Earth, shuttle astronauts practice building the space station that will one day be America's outpost in the heavens. Like so many space flights before, this spectacular moment represents the true mark of mission success as people and machines carry out their work in space. It's the ultimate payoff for the hard work and dedication of a highly skilled team of men and women back here on Earth. They are McDonnell Douglas Space Systems Kennedy Space Center Division. Hundreds of people working together as the world's preeminent payload processing team. As they prepare satellites, interplanetary probes, and space lab experiments for launch, team members are keenly aware that they hold in their grasp more than just technology. McDonnell Douglas is processing the hopes and dreams of a nation, carefully packaging those dreams for their trip to the ultimate proving ground of space. The McDonnell Douglas story at the Kennedy Space Center is a story about people. Men and women who put their hearts and souls into their craft every day. Their spirit represents the synergy that comes from the careful blending of people and technology. For the payload processing team, mission success hinges on interweaving the skills and intellect of a dedicated workforce to create a magnificent tapestry of technology.
In the end, when you see that you've done a good job, that the customer is happy, and to know that you were a part of that and that you made that happen, and that the reason it's successful is probably because of something that you've done. A little part of what you did has made this big project a success.
Performance above and beyond is the daily motto as the McDonnell Douglas team performs or supports payload ground processing for the space shuttle and expendable launch vehicles at the Kennedy Space Center and nearby Cape Canaveral Air Force Station. McDonnell Douglas Space Systems is proud of its contributions to America's space team, and our workforce constantly strives for complete customer satisfaction as it processes payloads for NASA and the Department of Defense. The job is tough. There's no margin for error. The team must manage hundreds of details as it prepares complicated one-of-a-kind payloads, such as a space lab module filled with numerous unique experiments. Planning is critical and begins years before launch with a careful evaluation of each payload and its needs. A multidisciplinary team of engineers and technicians design, build, and test the hardware and software needed for processing. And once the payload arrives, the team carefully pieces it together, checking, rechecking, testing, and verifying each critical component and connection. At this point, shuttle astronauts often get involved with the hands-on training they need to operate the payload in orbit. Every step of the process is tracked through sophisticated payload communications networks that link customers to various sites around the world. During this lengthy testing and checkout phase, getting it right the first time is imperative. It's a commitment to quality exemplified by payload communications technician Tom Batchelder.
People all around the world see the space program. They see what we do here at KSC. It's very important. When the orbiter gets off the pad and everything's fine, and it's up there, and the payload's launched out of the bay, and everything's going well, you feel good about it.
Getting the job right the first time is easier thanks to the work of the design visualization team. Using advanced computer graphics software, team members simulate the processing steps needed for each payload. Highly accurate three-dimensional models allow planners to avoid surprises during actual operations. With animation and computer models, design engineers can cost-effectively test new processing equipment before it's built, including a new generation of ground support systems for the space station Freedom and beyond. This computer-generated universe knows no boundaries as designers take us to the moon and the outer reaches of the solar system. For senior design engineer Jerry Flynn, his contribution is art at its most practical.
If they could bring us a two-dimensional sketch on a napkin, that's all I need. Someone can bring me a very crude sketch of an idea. It could be an advanced spacecraft to go to Mars, and I can take that and make it look like it's built. And In fact, it's in space on its way.
On Jerry Flynn's computer screen, the giant processing buildings are just mathematical images. In reality, they are some of the most magnificent facilities in the world. Half a dozen processing buildings are scattered across the Kennedy Space Center and Cape Canaveral Air Force Station, standing out in stark contrast to the untamed landscape of this wildlife refuge. The buildings have names such as Operations and Checkout Building, Vertical Processing Facility, and Spacecraft Processing and Integration Facility. Inside each, team members perform a common mission surrounded by some of the largest clean rooms in the world. Here, in this sterile, super pure environment, fragile payloads are assembled and tested, protected from the dust and dirt that can keep them from operating properly once in orbit. Facility managers like Dave Johnson are constantly aware of their critical link in the fine art of payload processing.
We play as big a role as anybody in it because you can't process payloads unless you have a clean, safe environment for the payload to be put together in. I mean, failure can occur anywhere, and if we don't keep our facilities clean and ready to support, you know, we would impact the launch, and that's not acceptable.
The commitment to provide the perfect processing environment doesn't end until a payload is safely nestled inside the shuttle's cargo bay. Getting it there is the critical task of a team called the CAN crew. Slowly, the CAN crew moves its precious cargo from place to place, the payload safely protected inside a 65-foot-long mobile clean room known as the payload canister. This high-fidelity simulator of the shuttle's payload bay can be rotated horizontally to carry payloads such as a Spacelab module, or vertically to carry a planetary probe such as Galileo. The destination varies from the orbiter processing facility, where shuttle processors lower Spacelab modules into the payload bay, to the launch pad, where vertical payloads are carefully transferred to a super clean payload changeout room for installation into the orbiter. And after a shuttle returns home, the McDonnell Douglas team is called in once again, this time to unload a payload such as Spacelab so it can be ready to fly again. It's teamwork at its best, artfully orchestrated by team members like technician Joe Frakes.
After the job's all done and you see the payload being deployed, it gives you an extreme amount of pride to know that, hey, without the team, it would have never got there.
Employee involvement is the backbone of the McDonnell Douglas payload processing team. Every employee is an active player in the total quality management commitment, with a chance to serve on one of the numerous teams created to improve performance and customer satisfaction. This team is helping enhance the payload data management system, an interactive computer environment networked to streamline information sharing and management. Process specialist Laura Anliker sees employee teams as an example of the fine art of listening.
It's the old explanation of synergy, 2 + 2 = 5. And the same with the customers being involved, that they've all listened to each other, they've all valued each other's opinions, and they've worked together as a team.
Workers take pride in their role in the continuous improvement process. Chris Herring is a material coordinator at the McDonnell Douglas Supply Warehouse. He served on a team faced with the challenge of streamlining and improving warehouse operation.
It makes you feel very important and that your job is important, and that makes you want to, you know, just give that extra 10% all the time.
Employees are involved at work and also in their community. One shining example is the Space Mirror, the Kennedy Space Center's memorial to astronauts who died in the line of duty. 7 McDonnell Douglas Space Systems engineers donated over 1,500 hours of their time to help design the control system that allows the giant mirror to track the sun. Employees also volunteer their time as school mentors in an effort to steer minority students toward careers in science and technology. It's called the SEARCH program, coordinated by Senior Security Representative Joan Ware. She's the classic portrait of a volunteer giving her time because the future of the space program depends on inspiring young minds.
They're just not going into the technical fields. Therefore, we're not getting a lot of engineers and technicians to replace the ones that will be leaving the Space Center, and that's how objective to get the students interested into the technical areas.
Preparing for the space program of the future plays a big role at McDonnell Douglas. It's a company steeped in the rich tradition of the past. From Alan Shepard's historic first flight in a Mercury spacecraft built by McDonnell Aircraft, to the Douglas-built Saturn rockets that rushed the Apollo spacecraft into orbit and on to the moon. Now the McDonnell Douglas team is leading the way as part of the Space Station Freedom Team. Kennedy Space Center engineers are developing the complex processing and testing standards for this one-of-a-kind payload. For team member Bill Revez, it's a chance to put experience to work for the future.
The ultimate challenge of space station is it's a combination of many payloads that when it's put on orbit all has to work together and play together. And the real big challenge is, since we can't put it all together on the ground, is to put enough of it together and build enough of the support equipment and test equipment to really make sure that that piece that we're putting up, that element, is going to function with the ones that exist up there and any future elements that are going to be mated to it.
The components that will become Space Station Freedom will be processed in a new 500,000 square foot facility, the most modern payload processing facility in the world. As it takes shape, engineers like John Ippolito feel an obvious sense of pride in their creation.
I feel that it's a monument to our future in space. Just like when you see the American flag going up, that sense of feeling and worth that you're part of the United States and part of something special, that's how I feel with this building.
That visionary spirit is the lifeblood of the McDonnell Douglas Kennedy Space Center payload processing team. Teammates take pride in performance above and beyond, knowing they are an integral part of a larger picture, that their craftsmanship helps propel America to the outer limits of science and technology. As the world's preeminent payload processing team, McDonnell Douglas Space Systems thrives on the daily pressure to perform, knowing the ultimate reward for a job well done is priceless new knowledge about our home planet and its place in the universe.